Hi, my name is Jonny Tridgell. I'm an RE teacher, I'm a researcher, currently working with the University of Oxford, and what I'm here to talk to you about today is a paper that I had recently published in the British Journal of RE. This paper looks specifically at how British RE textbooks, particularly English RE textbooks, essentialise, sanitise, and also take a Eurocentric approach towards both homosexuality but also African Christianities. So, in a nutshell, what I found when I looked at 11 different textbooks was that there is a real trend of essentialisation. Now, this is something that's been talked about by other scholars. Wanda Pillow, I'm not talking about RE, but talking about education generally, really advocates for us recognising how messy this can be. And textbooks don't really allow for that. They really want to put religion into really discrete categories. And it's understandable why they do that. It makes it easier to package, easier to understand. But it does mean that sometimes it's not very accurate or at least very rich portrayal of religion. It also was really influenced by a paper by Smith et al. In 2018 who found that bad religion in the UK was not seen as a true religion. So if you were the wrong sort of Christian, so say you believe something that was a bit difficult for liberal people in the UK to perhaps get on board with, like perhaps the subjugation of queer people, then you're no longer seen to be a Christian. And actually what we're trying to say here is actually, even if you don't think gay people will ever go to heaven, that doesn't stop you being a Christian, even if it perhaps makes it uncomfortable to talk about it. It's sanitised as well. There's a real tendency to portray Christian approach towards homosexuality as either saying that Christians are super okay with gay people, don't care about it at all, people can get married, have kids, all that kind of stuff, or what they call the traditional approach, which is what we often associate with Roman Catholics, which is the idea that you can be queer, but you must be celibate. Very little recognition that actually there are whole Christian groups who believe in conversion therapy, who might argue that being gay is a choice. Certainly there's plenty of groups who would argue that being transgender is a choice, and obviously we know that's not the case. What was also interesting is that there isn't this hesitancy when we talk about Islam. Textbooks are still quite happy to say that Muslims are anti-people being gay and will punish them for being gay, but present a much more sanitised view of Christianity. The final thing that's really important, though, if we are super Eurocentric, is particularly looking at Christianities based or developed in Europe and North America, particularly Protestant and Roman Catholic. So you don't see reference to different types of Christianity, like Coptic Christianity, Orthodox Christianity. But on top of that, African churches, like the Church of Uganda, are seen to be passive, rather than makers of their own theology. And what I'd really like to see is some more engagement with these churches as theology makers, as theology developers themselves. Whereas actually representations of African Christians tend to be of people who are recipients of aid or of evangelism, very much through a Eurocentric white saviour lens. It's about recognising that problem. Now, in terms of what comes out of this research, and please do go and read the paper, it's about expectations. We must expect more of our textbooks, our other teaching resources, the people that are making them. We need to put pressure on the DfE, Ofquan examples and others, particularly if we do end up with a national curriculum in RE. How are we talking about homosexuality, transgender people? How are we talking about this? We need to make sure we're engaging with LGBTQ plus people, but also people from non-Eurocentric Christianities. So we need to move away from this explicit focus only really on European and North American Christianity. We need to look globally. We need to think reflexively about textbook content and the sources that we use as teachers. Is this a good source? Is this a fair source? Does it show the messiness well? We need to promote what's called epistemic justice. So this is about recognising that people's thinking, their mindsets, what they believe matters, and we should treat it with dignity, even if we don't necessarily agree with it. But tolerance isn't about hiding away the bits that are uncomfortable. It's about making sure we understand people and that we understand the need to respect people's values, but also preserve people's safety. That's where the real teaching tolerance comes in. And we need to challenge this trend towards sanitisation, essentialisation, and Eurocentrism in RE whenever we can. Fundamentally, it's about telling the whole story, or at least, even if we can't tell the whole story, making sure that we show we know that the story is incomplete. Thank you very much for listening.